So I'm going to try to get this recording emailed out today. Most of the time I'm successful with getting it sent out same day. But if not, just be patient with me. You'll get it hopefully within the next couple of days. So it is 3 p.m. I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. I'm Amelia Scott. I do marketing here at WSB, and I have the privilege of hosting this panel today with a great group of people. We have Megan, Sean, and Maurice. They're all teachers here, and they all have a unique journey and experience with blindness and this assistive technology. So I'm really excited to hear what they have to say. We have a few questions. Again, I've admitted a few more people, so I'm going to repeat myself. If you do have a question, notice that you are coming in muted. So I encourage you to put any questions that you do have in the chat. If we have time to get to them, we will. And if we don't have that time, we will get your question answered and we'll follow up with you via email. So we'll do everything we can to answer every question, but I'm just going to let our speakers introduce themselves. So I'll go ahead and turn the computer their way. Megan, maybe you'd like to start. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't say that very decisively, but yeah, go ahead.
Megan, I'm one of the online ATI instructors here at WSB. Anything else?
And I'm Sean, also one of the ATI online instructors.
And my name is Maurice. I am on-campus ATI instructor.
All righty, thanks, guys. So our first question is, how did your personal journey with vision loss shape your approach to learning and teaching assistive technology? And maybe we'll start with you, Megan.
So I don't necessarily have a vision loss journey. Exactly, I was born blind, so there's never been anything else. As far as assistive technology goes, and I'm floating my words, y'all. I was handed a note taker when I was in third grade. A braille note taker, and in my spare time, and some not in my spare time, I would learn it and explore it and see what all it could do. And I've been a nerd ever since. So I learn it and then I teach people the relevant things that they need to know.
Yeah, contrasting to Megan a little bit, I lost my sight later on in life, about maybe 14 years or so. And AT sort of broke its way into my life in that at the time I had an iPhone 4. And when my first VR told me about the screen reader that is on every iPhone called VoiceOver, again, it was just sort of like a game changer for me, just knowing that I could do essentially everything that I was doing before, but just different. So every piece of technology that I've come across ever since has been a similar experience.
Right, so me growing up with a progressive eye disease, having to use assistive technology, it was only a natural transition for me to want to help others, because I've always by nature been independent. So using all those devices and knowing that people wanting to give people hope that they can also change their life and use different devices and software to be able to accomplish goals in their life. So that's why I wanted to share the information.
Great answers, you guys. Thank you for sharing. The second question we have, what was the most intimidating piece of assistive technology you had to learn, and how did you overcome that fear or frustration? And maybe we'll start with you, Sean.
Oh, it was definitely the bump dots. They were extremely difficult to use. I mean, you got all those shapes and sizes, it's hard to choose. No, but seriously, it's definitely the braille display, because like I said, I was not born blind, so to speak. So that piece of technology came later in life. And so I had to learn braille first, which I'm still doing, and then moving on to a braille display, it's just probably been the most challenging because it's something that I don't use every day in my life. Like someone who was born without any vision might have been using it since they were 5 years old. So that's been the most challenging.
Yeah, I'm actually going to speak to kind of learning in general as a newly blind person. I mean, I think the whole prospect can, for some at least, seem very daunting and overwhelming. I hadn't been in a learning environment since high school when I lost my sight, which had only been a few years at that point, but it's just like the phrase I kept saying is like, I feel so intimidated by the prospect of college because I don't even know how to learn it. And so everything from your basic screen readers that I use on all throughout my everyday now in my personal and professional life just looms so large in my mind. So, and that process continued when I came here to World Services, but when you have great instructors who start at a very basic level, it makes things a lot more easier to adjust and adapt and integrate into your life.
So mine is a little more specific to AT like Sean's is. Mine would be definitely Zoom text. I've never, like I said, I've never had vision before, so I was very daunted by, I don't know what the screen looks like. I don't know what colors look like. So I was apprehensive about learning Zoom text and teaching Zoom text. But then I got out of my own head and was finally decided I didn't necessarily need to know what the screen looked like or what I was supposed to be seeing, as long as I knew how to navigate the interface and that the person beside me or on Zoom, who I'm teaching can see it, then they would know if the screen is changed and if the text is larger and if the mouse pointer is orange or whatever. That helped tremendously. And I had another thought and I forgot it.
That's all right. If you think of it, we can always come back to that one. We'll go ahead and go to the next question. How do you help students see technology as a tool for independence rather than a barrier? So we'll go ahead and start with you, Bree.
Yeah, and this kind of is in concert with the first question that we asked. So for me, I've had, my dad was an instructor in the military. He was military. So my aunt was a career-long teacher at elementary setting. So I can sort of, when I started sharing my story here and these in fact with the project that we had to get into the ATI covered, teaching for me and always being ready, willing, and eager to in fact share what has helped me in my life has been a mainstay before sight loss. And so when I started to get my rehabilitation, everything that I was learning, just that onus was already there in me to sort of share what was helping me. Of course, it was my opportunities to do so were limited because I was the only one in my personal life that was blind. But as I started to become more familiar with the blind community, those opportunities made themselves more available. As far as AT goes, again, it's just kind of a natural thing when you have something like that inside of you and you see such a benefit. It's like, when you find something very delicious food-wise, if something is so good, you just can't help but share it. You have to taste this. It's AT is sort of the same way when you see the implications that can be made, and the benefits that it brings to other people. You just can't help but share it.
That's a great question, or a great answer to a great question. Sean, what do you think?
Well, we see a lot of students here on campus and online, and we run into a lot of reluctancy. Let's put it that way. Their students will come in and they've never used a screen reader ever before. They've never used magnification ever before, and they often get frustrated. This is new territory for them. Maybe they didn't lose their vision that long ago. But I try to help them to see the other side. I said, try to help them understand, do you want to be independent? Do you want to feel isolated? Or, do you want to live off a disability check only? What is the alternative? Now, you can take a couple steps backward and you can learn some new skills and devote yourself to this and change your life, or you can keep on doing the same pattern that you're doing.
So for me, I really kind of try to explain to people that not using technology would be the barrier for them, because everything runs on technology. No one is doing anything analog for the most part. There are some, but if you have lost a significant amount of vision, say for example, pulling out a checkbook and writing a check to pay a bill, that's not going to be easy. Writing a note for a class or a meeting, it's a lot easier done digitally. So really, people are kind of hurting themselves to not learn the technology. And once they see what other people are doing with it, they typically come to that conclusion. A lot of people, though, they already have some experience with technology if they have lost their vision. And so they know what it can do. They just know they need to use it differently. And then, of course, the people like me that never had vision in the first place, I've not really met too many people coming from that perspective that are hesitant or reluctant to use technology. There are some, and that comes from their environment, and they usually come around pretty quickly.
Awesome. This next one will start with you, Megan. So this question is, how do you stay up to date with constantly changing technology? And how do you decide what to teach first to someone who's just starting out?
So I love podcasts. That's my thing. That's how I learn anything, but especially technology, specifically like Apple Biz is one that's mainly focused on Apple products. Mystic Access is more general, but there's a heavy emphasis on technology. Access On is another one. FS Cast, that's more focused on JAWS. So I learn a lot that way. Sometimes social media, but not really. And YouTube videos are great because then this is the technology, this is how it's used. They're doing demos. They do that on podcasts too, but YouTube. And then as far as the first thing I teach someone, I mean, I would, if it was me in my own setting without, rules or whatever, I would start with what they have in their hand, whether they're using an iPhone or an Android phone, see what all you can do with just this device, and then go from there, whatever their most immediate need is. If they need to be able to use a computer for their job or use Office or whatever, or Google, then we will go there. Sean, do you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what was the first question or the second one? What was the first one?
This one, the most recent question is, how do you stay up to date with constantly changing technology? And how do you decide
Right.
what to teach first? to someone who's
Okay,
starting out?
right. So, I mean, this is age of information. So obviously, social media is everywhere, and there's so many platforms. If you can't, there's groups on Facebook. There's like Megan was saying, there's YouTube videos. There's podcasts. I mean, you almost can find a specialty group for almost anything you're looking for. All the vendors, all the manufacturers of these products all have their own Facebook page. I mean, and it's just one big circle really. And so then you have LinkedIn, you have other assistive technology instructors that you can correspond with. You can find out information. They all might be specialists in a certain area. So you can, trade ideas with them. So it's endless where you can find that. And the second part of the question was, what was the second
How do you
question?
decide what matters?
Oh, well, okay, so that is, what goal does the student have? Does the student just want to be able to use Facebook and, and talk with their grandkids, correspond, or do they want to go in the kitchen and cook themselves a hamburger? Are they preparing for school? So they need to use a computer. Are they preparing for a job? So we have to determine their goals, and then what tasks are they going to need to be able to do to accomplish those goals, and then we can determine what tools they'll need. Can we take it from there?
Yeah. Just to kind of piggyback and maybe say it a little bit differently from my perspective, how do you stay up to date on technology? I mean, sort of by any means necessary. Sort of your own desire to acquire information about technology is really going to drive this. I use a combination of the things that Megan and Sean mentioned, like podcasts and social media. I am a graduate of Podcast University. So you're really going to, and just also word of mouth. As you get more ingratiated into the blind community, people are just, again, like we answered in the previous question, just disseminating information at a very rapid pace and at will. So the more you get in touch with those different networks like Sean was talking about. I know Mastodon, for instance, has a huge blind community that's thriving there. So it's really about just like any other interest group or people group, it's about finding your people. And then you'll find the new technologies that way. Also, another thing that's going to drive that is there are always new devices coming to the market all the time that may or may not have one or two new bells and whistles that, again, like Megan mentioned earlier, you're just going to find yourself nerding out on. As far as teaching, what to teach first, you just essentially, I do like in my personal life or professional setting, just a needs assessment. I look to the past and the future. As far as the past, what has this person been doing already, and how can we use technology to, make those things possible? And then, like Sean was saying, what are their goals, either personally or professionally? Do they just want to keep up with their family, or are they looking to get a degree? And everywhere in between, technology can definitely assist them in pursuing those.
Great answer, you guys. So it seems like you kind of have to stay invested in not only the changing technology, but also the individual that you work with.
Never ending.
Cool, cool. Okay, so the next question. What's one moment in your work with a student that reminded you why assistive technology matters? So we'll start with you, Sean.
Well, I mean, there's not any one moment. I see this every day. I mean, the students cannot perform these functions. They cannot use a computer or a phone without assistive technology. I mean, so you can go as simple as that. But on a smaller platform, a couple of years ago, I was working with a gentleman teaching him iPhone. He was an older gentleman, he didn't use a lot of assistive technologies, but he was a big NBA fan. He loved basketball. And so he was just elated when I taught him how to use YouTube, and he could go back and watch videos of NBA players back in the 80s, so it was nostalgic for him. And it just made his day. I mean, every day he could pull up a video and put in Michael Jordan video and sit there and, have endless hours of entertainment, And so, it brought joy to his life. So I thought it's important.
Yeah, I had to say what Sean says, one of the things that we spend a lot of time doing here at World Services is preparing people for a vocational program to get them, either into for the first time or back into the workforce. But man, I gotta say those moments where AT can impact someone's personal life really, really do stand out. In the morning time, we have an iPhone class that I teach, and the iPhone again is not only very powerful, but again, it's everywhere we go. And so when clients are going through the different topics and modules and things like that, and they're seeing how they can directly plug a skill in that was just taught into their everyday life, that makes it worth it. Notwithstanding all the things that we have to deal with from point A to point B, it still does make.
So I don't have one specific moment with a student or anything, but just the fact that technology, I think I said it earlier, technology runs the world, nerds rule. And without technology, you just kind of get left out of the world, and that's sad and depressing. And that's why assistive technology matters, so that you can be a participant in life and be a functioning, productive person and get your enjoyment, your entertainment, your communication with your people. And when people send the email for the first time and get a response, they realize how cool that is. They just read it with JAWS or with voiceover, whatever. They send a text message. They get their phone to play them a song that they haven't heard in 20 years. Stuff like that. It's nice. It's good to see.
That's awesome. What are the most recent devices, apps, or softwares that help totally blind individuals to live independently in their own life? And maybe we'll just pick right back up with you.
Probably AI. It's getting to be more and more of a generic answer, I feel like, because that's what everyone says. But it's getting integrated into everything. And that's not a substitute for skills. Yeah, you can have ChatGPT write your paper, but you still should be able to use Microsoft Word with JAWS. Otherwise, you're not fully in the world. And AI, Sean.
Yeah, so there's quite a few products that are coming on, but the newest trend now is with the smart glasses. There's several companies that have come up with them and use the IRA app. So people can wear their glasses and they can navigate around wherever they want to go. And it's awesome. I mean, not only that, but they also have smart gates as well that have GPS systems and built into them and stuff like that. So it's going to be amazing to see what comes up in the next 4 to 5 years, especially with the smart glasses. It's gonna be a game changer for those trying to be independent.
Yeah, I would just follow it up by saying, you mentioned navigation, and your personal life, and I would just point out apps that, there's a couple of instances, that I can think of, like Voice Vista and Lazarillo, and the app that just really tells blind people very crucial information. As some might imagine who don't have experience vision loss or sight loss. An obvious question is, where am I and what's around me? Apps like Voice Vista and Lazarillo do a really great job of telling you, even while you're traveling, where you are, what direction you're heading, even in Voice Vista, how fast you're going, and points of interest around restaurants, banks, businesses around you and things like that. So it can be very powerful to just gain a sense of your independence and where you're
Great answer. We did see some interest in the, when I polled, just in AI in general. Do you guys have any, I guess that's not a very specific question, but if you want to expand any on AI that you've used, maybe start with you.
Yeah, so the one that I use most on a regular basis is Be My Eyes. It originally started out as a community, actually, of people, of sighted volunteers who were giving visual assistance to blind and visually impaired people. Well, with the advent of AI, you're able to simply just take a picture of what's in front of you, and the AI model spits out an answer of what's in you, and you can ask you follow-up questions to gain more detail about what's in front of you. For instance, if I take a picture of a piece of paper in front of me, I can look for specific information like a receipt. How much, was it, was the total and the specific line items on that receipt. So just being able to use that with my iPhone has been just really remarkable.
Very cool. What about you, Sean? Do you have any other use for AI other than what we kind of discussed?
It's pretty much the same thing. It's just amazing what they're doing now, with AI, how descriptive it can be by taking pictures. People can take, like for instance, they can go on vacation and they could take a picture of the scenery, whether they're in front of Big Ben in London, and it will give them detailed description about it. I mean, back in the day, there were very vague descriptions, and you didn't really get much out of it. But now it's amazing the details that the AI can generate.
I use Meta glasses. I have Meta glasses. And one day I decided I was going to use these glasses to go through everything in my closet. I'm not a clothes person. Like, I don't know anything about them, not fashionable. It's okay. But I was curious. So I wore the glasses and I held things up and I would say, what does this look like? Or, tell me what this is. And it would say it's a pink top or whatever. And I was able to question it farther and say, what kind of pink? Is it light or dark? Does it have flecks of things, or how wide are the stripes? How big are the dots? Whatever. And it was the coolest thing ever. That was probably the neatest thing I've ever done with AI.
That's really interesting. It's not something I ever thought about either. But that's cool. And this kind of gives you more information than you're used to having.
Yeah, being able to question it.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of have a dialogue with it. That's cool. So I'll direct this one at you, Megan. What are some social media groups, platforms, or organizations that can help you network? So start with you. What do you think?
So there are groups specific on Facebook, specific to JAWS, specific to NVDA, specific to iOS. There are general groups that are just technology. There are general blindness groups if you just want to network with other people who are blind with no specific interest. There are mailing lists. People still use them. I forget about them. We do still use them. And That's really the extent of my knowledge on it.
Yeah, I guess I would say, to piggyback, Megan was pretty thorough, with those, but, yeah, I mean, thankfully, what I would say is that, we can network and, you know, congregate online, in a very similar, if not the same way that most other people do. We can even use things like LinkedIn, to, you know, network in a professional sense. Thankfully, the LinkedIn app is very accessible with voiceover on our iPhones. And so, as far as I can tell, you know, all the features are accessible there. If you're looking to go the professional route, then things like LinkedIn, Indeed, and things like that, are tools that can still be used to network digitally.
What do you got, Sean?
Definitely, I mean, you know, they've pretty much covered everything. Like I said, if you want to find something that a specialty group on for Facebook, for instance, you can find it. Let's say that you know, like me, I have retinitis pigmentosa, a progressive eye disease. I can go on there and there are groups for just that disease. And you can network with people that are experiencing the same things you are. They might have some ideas, something they've tried that you could look into. Now, if you want a specific type of technology that you want to find out more information on, like Megan mentioned, there's an NVDA group on Facebook, and you can go down that rabbit hole, and it's never ending. And the thing is that most of us who are involved in the technology industry, the assistive technology industry, are probably belong to all the groups, all of them above. So you know, it's just like I said, it's a big community, close knit, and the information's out there, and it's not tough to find.
Awesome. So we have one last question. How can we apply to, and this will be for you, Sean. How can we apply to grants, funds, or partnerships in order to provide totally blind users with these assistive devices and apps?
Well, for each state, it's different. Every state has different agencies, organizations that will help to provide those devices. Now, most of the time, it's through the vocational rehabilitation agencies in each state, where the individual would apply, and so they can give you some assessments and they can determine what your needs are. You know, if you have goals of employment, often if you need to have a goal of employment or going back to school, and that's when they're going to consider funding you to get you these, because you know, it's no secret that these devices, they're in each group, so they're expensive. And so they need funding. You know, a lot of people can't afford a $3,500 Braille display. You know, they don't have $3,500 laying around, and so they need it funded. So if you have goals that are going to improve your life, that they feel like they can invest in, that these agencies feel like it's necessary to invest in you, and they will do so. And they'll provide the devices that you need. But there's also private work. Did you want to say something?
Go ahead, please.
Oh, I was just going to say, there's also private, like for instance, I'm from North Dakota. There is private agencies that were not state agencies that, for instance, bought me a laptop. They provided me with an iPhone. And so it all depends on what every state is a little bit different.
Yeah, I was gonna actually say that point, like, if you are just in need of technology, like for an iPhone, or there's a tap program out there that a lot of clients that we see use, and things like that. So again, like we've said, most of the resources, like the social media and the apps, thankfully, a lot of those are free. There might be some features that are behind the paywall, but a lot of stuff we mentioned today is free. When you start talking about the technology devices themselves, like Sean was saying, they can be a bit pricey, but as far as especially communication needs, like specifically an iPhone, there are most of the time programs and institutions out there that are providing them to people. They may not be the latest and greatest, but it beats nothing, and it's still serviceable and accessible.
Great. Megan, you got anything to add on that one?
So it's not necessarily funding programs or whatever. I did just think of this. There are buy and sell groups. So if, for example, you're thinking you would like to try out an iPad or a certain Braille display, if you're able to find it that someone is selling used at a lower cost, obviously there's no state that's going to pay that. You have to get the money yourself, but that is an option if you want to dip your foot into the pool there. there's that alternative to buying something new and trying to seek funding for it.
And one more thing, you know, most states have a place where you can go try out devices, where they have many of these devices on, you know, there for you to actually put your hands on and try out. So you're not getting into something that you're not sure of. So.
Very nice.
Alrighty, thank you guys. And we'll get your question taken care of. Again, I'm gonna try to get this recording out to everybody today, but if not, within the next couple of days for sure. And thank you guys so much. I'm gonna go ahead and end the meeting, and thank you so much to our speakers. They did a great job. So thank you and see you soon.